What's up, Algebra 1? This is lesson 9.5, and we're talking about how do you solve quadratics by completing the square. Well, remember yesterday we were working with solving quadratics, meaning that it has an exponent of 2, by taking the square root. So we had something like this, and we take the square root of both sides, and we had to add in the plus or minus. And we'd say, oh, we have x plus 2 is equal to the plus or minus 3. We break it up and we said, oh, x is 2, x is 1, or x is negative 5. Well, this right here is a perfect square. And we can say that because think about a square that has side x plus 2 and side length x plus 2. This one right here is the x squared term. This rectangle right here is 2 by x, so its area is 2x. This rectangle has 2 by x, and then this one is 2 by 2, so the area of that one is 4. So 2x plus 2x is that 4x, so the area of this whole big square is x squared plus 4x plus 4. And this is a perfect square, and so we can do something like this with it. We can take the square root of it to simplify down and solve. So we know they're a perfect square when we have a quadratic like this, where that last number, the c, the constant, is this number divided by 2 squared. This part right here. So if this number, if the c is that number divided by 2 squared, then we know that it is a perfect square. And so what we can do is we can make quadratics a perfect square because we know this fact. Okay? So what we're going to do is, this is number 1 and number 5 on your worksheet. It says find the value of c that completes the square, meaning what value here should c be to make this a perfect square. So remember then that this number right here is my b. Okay? So I want my c to be b divided by 2 squared. Well, my b is 18, so this is going to be 18 over 2. 18 divided by 2 is just simply 9. And 9 squared is 9 times 9, or 81. So my c should equal 81. Now, this part you don't have to do. I'll do it in a different color so you realize that. So notice if I had y squared plus 18y plus 81, if I was going to factor that, I would have y, and they would both be plus signs. I need factors of 81 that add up to 18. That would just be 9 and 9. And that would be y plus 9 squared. It comes out to be a perfect square. Okay? And so we found a c that made this quadratic a perfect square. Now this one worked out nicely because my b was an even number. See how it's 18? We can still do the same thing if that b is an odd number. It just doesn't work out quite as nice as we normally like. So I'm going to go ahead and do one. I think number 5 and number 6 are going to be like this with a fraction. But I'm going to do one of them for you, so you should be okay. So we're going to say, then, remember this is my b. So I want my c to be this b, 11 divided by 2 squared. 11 divided by 2 squared. Well, 11 isn't divided into 2 evenly, so we'll just square it as normal. So remember our exponent property of 11 squared over 2 squared. We can do that. If the whole thing is being squared, it's the same thing as the top squared over the bottom squared. And then 11 times 11 is 121. And 2 times 2 is 4. So my c should be 121 over 4. Now, the same thing can happen with this, a squared plus 11a plus, if we said 121 over 4. When we factor this, it's going to be a plus, and this is going to be 11 over 4, and 11 over 4. Now normally we aren't used to doing this with fractions, but it will work for these. And if you FOIL this out, you'd realize you get this, because this times this, oh, sorry, not 11 over 4, it should be 11 over 2. This times this gives you the a squared, this times this gives you 11 over 2, or half of an 11. This times this gives you the other half of 11, so when you add them together, half 11 plus half of 11 gives you a full 11. And this times this gives you the 121 over 4. So notice again, this is a perfect square. So now our instructions change to solve each by completing the square. So our trick, or how we're going to solve this, is we're going to get everything with a p on it on the left-hand side and everything without a p on the right-hand side. So let's see, I'm going to need to add 16p. So the left-hand side is going to be p squared plus 16p. I'm purposely leaving some space, is equal to 36. Right, those two went to 0. Now I'm going to do my little trick. My b is 16, so I'm going to say 16 over 2 squared. Well, half of 16 is 8. 8 squared, 8 times 8 is 64. Okay, so this number I just made up based off of that c should equal to b over 2 squared. And my b is that 16. So the 64, I'm going to then add to both sides. I'm going to say plus 64 and plus 64. Now whenever I add the 64, that means this left-hand side is going to factor to p plus factors of 64 that add up to 16 is going to be 8. And notice, if you would, that this number right here is the same as this number. And then this is going to equal to 100, because 36 plus 64 is 100. Well, this left-hand side is now going to be p plus 8 squared is equal to 100. And now we're to the point of yesterday where they're asking us to solve. So we're going to take the square root. So we're going to say p plus 8 is equal to plus or minus 10. Split this up. P plus 8 is equal to 10, or p plus 8 is equal to negative 10. Whenever I subtract 8 from both sides, p is equal to 2. Whenever I subtract 8 from both sides, p is equal to negative 18. So here are my two answers. Let's try another one here. Let's go with, so I need to add 12 here. 12v to be precise. So I'm going to have v squared plus 12v, leaving space, equals negative 11. Okay, so notice I moved everything with v's to the left-hand side, everything without a v on the right-hand side. So now I'm going to do our little, I don't want to say magic trick, but magic trick here. The 12 is my b, so I'm going to say 12 over 2 and square it. That's going to be 12 divided by 2 is 6 squared, and that equals to 36. This is the number I've found. I've made that up, if you want to say it that way. And I've found that number to make this a perfect square. So then I'm going to add it, plus 36. And what you add to one side, you must add to the other. Now this left-hand side, now that I've made it this way, it's going to factor to v plus 6 and v plus 6, because those are factors of 36 that add up to 12. Then 36 minus 11 is 25. So this is v plus 6 squared is equal to 25. taking the square root, v plus 6 is equal to plus or minus 5. Split that up into 2. V plus 6 is equal to 5, or v plus 6 is equal to negative 5. Subtracting 6, I get v is equal to negative 1. Subtracting 6 from both sides, I get v is equal to negative 11. And those are my two answers. Now I'll do one more for you, and this one, we realize is slightly different. Let's go ahead and get us to where we need to be here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to add 12a and add 80 to both sides. So I'm going to have 2a squared, that's this one up here, plus the 12a that I added, purposely leaving space, is equal to, those two go to 0, and now on the right hand side I just have that 80. Now, the perfect square only works if this number, the leading coefficient, the number by the squared, is 1. So in order to get that to be 1, I'm going to have to first divide this by 2. So I'm going to divide everything by 2 to keep them even. So 2a squared over 2 is just a squared. 12a over 2 gives me 6a, leaving space. 80 divided by 2 gives me 40. Now, let's do our trick here. This is going to be my b, so I'm going to say b over 2 squared. 6 over 2 is 3 squared, which is 9. That's my number. So I'm going to add 9 over here and add 9 over here. Factoring the left-hand side, when we're doing this trick, a plus, not 9, but 3 squared is equal to 49. Take the square root. A plus 3 is equal to plus or minus 7. Split that up. A plus 3 is equal to 7, where a plus 3 is equal to negative 7. Subtracting 3, a is equal to 4, or subtracting 3, a is equal to negative 10. Alright, so I've done several there of your homework. Go ahead and finish up this worksheet, and it is due tomorrow. Good luck, guys.